Hello, our users. My name is John Kulas, back with the headset again this week. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology, 12-year user of R for normal, boring statistical applications. But for the last 9 or 10 years, so for the majority of the time I've been using R, I've also been using the platform that I script R within to execute full projects. So we can create papers, we can make reports, we can do conference posters. Was just working this morning on a conference poster within our studio. We can do websites, we can do slides. We're going to be doing slides tonight. So the whole purpose of me being here every week at 7 o'clock Eastern for roughly an hour is to promote this way of structuring work. So there's different kind of labels that are given to this way of interfacing with your scripting environment. It's called plain text editing. It's called literate programming. It's consistent with this concept of reproducible research. I think it's super duper important for anyone working with quantitative stuff regularly to be able to not just do the quantitative stuff within your quantitative platform, but to be able to execute the entire project from within that one same source. And so it just minimizes error. It's just a very, very good idea. And so I'm here every week to promote this. We use I say we, so occasionally I'm joined by some compatriots. And by the way, just found out that Diego that occasionally stops by and joins us here, he just had twins. So literally within the last couple of hours here, he had twins. So congrats, Diego. Let's see if we can give any sort of congratulations here to Diego. That is that's pretty badass, I guess. Let's try this. That's a Diego congratulations there. But so best of luck, Diego. It's awesome. Everyone's healthy and happy, hopefully. And so new two more Diegos coming our way. They're both boys. So um, I hang out occasionally. Diego and some others join, and we're just here to promote and to be a resource to people who might want to kind of dip their toes into the waters here and see how to do this, how to structure stuff, or maybe what some of the capabilities are. And so my intent still for this is here as a resource if someone is out there and is interested in doing this and you want some kind of someone to bounce some ideas off of. But absent that, what we've been doing is we've been looking at features, so focused capabilities of structuring your work this way. So how do I make fonts? How do I do watermarks? How do I create slides? And so in addition to focusing on limited featured capabilities, we've also been climbing the alphabet very slowly here. So we're on the letter X. We literally started at the letter A. And so we're almost there right now. It's been a long slog, honestly. So after we get through Y and Z, I'm gonna feel liberated to just cover whatever topic I feel like covering. Or maybe I don't know. It's kind of nice having that structure. So it's kind of nice having some imposition that says, hey, this is maybe what you should look at. So tonight's feature focus, consistent with, or starting with the letter X, which is where we're at in the alphabet, is we're going to look at Xaringan slides. And Xaringan slides are the kind of predecessor of what you're looking at right now. So by the way, what you're looking at right now, let me get this out of the way, but what you're looking at right now is available to you. If you look in the comments, there's a hyperlink to these slides, and the slides have embedded resources within them. So please do make use of those slides. I like putting them together, but I like it even better if there's people that find them useful. So take a look at the slides. And then always, not always, but for the last few weeks, I've also been putting a resource in there that is a tutorial on how to build your own report. Now, the content of that, or the topic, I guess, of that report is psychological measurement, but the content and the topic is somewhat immaterial. Really, what the resource is there for in terms of making it available to you is you can literally copy and paste bits of code that I have and paste it into a document that you have and run your own scripts and create your own scripting file such that you get your own report. And then you can take it and tweak it and put whatever you want in there. It just shows some of the basic capabilities that make this way of structuring quantitative work so powerful. There's inline code. There's kind of a live there's a live kind of interaction and dynamic nature of what you write and what your analyses are. So there's back and forth there. It's all embedded within that tutorial. So please check that out if you haven't. And then there's also, I said we were going to keep this on for a few weeks, but I've just kept it on because it's such a nice resource. There's a book resource as well that is hyperlinked here in this week's slide. If you get to these, if you're watching this and the comments are not yet populated, those two hyperlinks are also in the description to this week's video. Now this week's going to be a little bit different because in addition to the focal topic, the focal authoring with our topic, which is going to be again these Xaringan slides, I need to pause and take care of a little business here locally first, and that business locally is it has to do with a fantasy football league that I'm a part of, and it's apparently an illiterate fantasy football league who they don't know how to spell fantasy. But we actually need to set the draft order for the fantasy draft, and I partly because we're doing this weekly, I have the opportunity to make the selection in a way that's transparent and that people can see that there's no partiality involved with this. So what we're going to do before we get into tonight's topic is I'm going to actually engage with R to determine the first 3 draft picks in our fantasy football draft. So the way that we're going to do that is I'm going to engage with R. I haven't actually, so the first year or so that we did these weekly sessions, I was pulling up these slides locally from within my R session, and now I've kind of gotten in the habit of using the slides. Like I'm recommending you use the slides. I've also been using those slides. And the process I'm going to use here is just base R sampling procedure using the sample function, and just to show what that is before I launch this for real, I want to actually show what's happening here. Oh, look at that, it's color coding orange. I didn't expect that. So I'm going to create a vector, an object called fruit, and that fruit object has 3 elements to it, or 3 values within it: banana, orange, and apple. And if I use the sample procedure of that fruit object, I can say how many things I want to be sampled, in this case all 3. And then I'm also going to say replace equals false. And that just simply means once it's sampled, I don't want it to be thrown back into the vector to potentially be sampled again. And so if I engage with that, it's going to give me those 3 elements in a random sequence. And so what we're going to do for the fantasy football draft order is I'm going to replace banana, orange, and apple with the 3 members of the fantasy football league who are all candidates to have the #1 draft pick in this upcoming season. And so just to show what happens here with this procedure, if I engage with that, you're going to get a different sequence of entities each time. And so let's sweep this here. Let's make a clean environment. And what I would like to do is I'd like to create an object now, which is, we'll call it fantasy. And there's 3 people within that vector: Chirag, good friend of mine from childhood; Kyle, good friend of mine from junior high about; and then Brian, his twin brother, who I got to know around the same time, so also a good friend. Great people, awesome people. So we're going to create that object. And now before I sample, I did set this up so we have a little suspense to this. So let's get our drum roll.
Drum roll, please. That's your drum roll.
When a tempo isn't specified, any reasonable person would default to lento.
When a tempo isn't specified, any reasonable person would default to lento. That's what he said there. So I'm going to sample from that object, if I can spell it. We're going to get all 3, and then we're going to do the replace equals false. And so I'm going to hit enter, and the first value that's sampled is draft pick #1. The second value is draft pick #2, and the third is draft pick #3. Those of you that are statistically savvy out there, you're saying, cool ass, there's 2 degrees of freedom, you don't need all 3. it's fantasy football. We're going to do all three. All right. So drum roll, please. Brrr. The order of draft in the upcoming 2026 fantasy football college player draft and free agent draft. It's what's called a dynasty league. So it's a college and free agent player is Chirag, Kyle, Brian. So that's your draft order for 2026. Congratulations, Chirag. You have the number. Okay, congrats, Chirag. Now, for us normal R users, we can get into our recap of what actually happened last week. So last week we were looking at, well, last week was a mess. So unbeknownst to me, the entirety of YouTube was down last week. But let's get a transition into what happened last week.
Well, on the tiny island of New Greenpoint, Rocky and Bullwinkle have finally had a grand reunion, thanks to a plan of Captain Peach Fuzz's, which of course turned out the wrong way. Now they're all tied tightly and at the mercy of King Bushwick the 33rd.
33rd.
33rd. Our friends are guests of honor at a New Greenpoint block party.
Only question is who goes to the block first?
But why execute us?
Because your friends are his.
Well, what did Bullwinkle do?
Nothing, that's what I did.
That's just it. He was our substitute wizard, see?
Bullwinkle, a wizard?
On account of my weather forecasting bunion, Rocky.
But as a substitute for an oogle boy, he's a terrible flop. And our law said there's only one punishment for a wizard who don't whiz.
Bullwinkle was substitute for an oogle bird?
Of course.
And Bushwick told Rocky and the captain about the legendary ooglebird who sat on a mountaintop and laid eggs containing fantastic predictions.
Los Angeles is full of sorrow. Dodgers lose again tomorrow.
Sorry, I know I was going to start doing those shorter, but I also let it be known that the oogle bird is one of my favorite characters, and I need to hear it say oogle, oogle, oogle. So you're going to have to bear with me for the next couple of weeks. So last week, we took a look at watermarks. And there's an example watermark on this slide. It says draft. It's a large one in the background there. And there's a repeated watermark on this current slide you're looking at, which says sample repeatedly. And again, there are embedded resources here. If you'd like to learn a little more, you can hit these hyperlinks. What does this go to? Watermarks goes to, this shows you how I've been specifying watermarks within these reveal.js slides. You're looking at a reveal.js slide here. And there are different ways to specify watermarks based on different products that you might be interested in. Quarto, the software that we've been using, is really moving toward not only being language agnostic with regard to the statistical language. So R, Julia, and Python are kind of the big three right now. But it has accommodations for other languages as well. And it even has the forethought and kind of forward thinking to say, yeah, we're going to accommodate languages that have not yet been specified. I'm laughing because Diego, the new again proud papa, he used to laugh at that. He used to think that was a funny concept. Languages that have not yet been specified. So Quarto's not quite there yet in terms of being product agnostic. So I think they're moving toward that, such that the way that you specify your script, it's a really easy tweak to say at the very top, all of this stuff, I want it to be a PDF format, or I want it to be an HTML format. And those are kind of the two main ones historically that we've endeavored to create when we use these processes, but it's not quite there yet. So there's going to be different processes and procedures and methods that you probably want to use if you're creating slides or if you're creating something like a report, either an HTML or a PDF report. So this first tab that you're looking at that says this symbol here is the reveal.js symbol, the yellow thing. So if you want to do reveal.js slides like you're looking at, one really easy way that I've used to use watermarks is to just use this background image specification. And there's a not only image, but you can specify the opacity as well. So how transparent it is, or how kind of thick and block and un-see-through-ish it actually is. Now there's other attributes that you can apply So in addition to opacity and image, you can do the size, you can do the position, you can specify whether it repeats or not. And again, these aren't exhaustive. There are more attributes that you can apply, but in terms of a watermark specifically, I've found these two to be largely sufficient in terms of watermarks on Reveal.js slides. So the easiest way to do this is just to use those inline curly brackets. And so what I have here is I have kind of, by the way, sorry, I'm getting something. So my voice is probably going to wear out tonight. I have a couple of things here. So I have hot chocolate. I've mentioned over the course of a couple of weeks that I've been drinking hot chocolate during these sessions. It's winter here. It's Minnesota. And I don't know. I also mentioned I'm not a frequent hot chocolate drinker. So I have this next to me because it's kind of fortuitous in terms of timing. But I finally went through this tonight. So tonight I used the last of this Nestle Quick that I don't know if you can see that, but this is how infrequently I use it. The best if used by date there is September of 2013. And there's a contest for Phineas and I think that's Phineas and Ferb. Where's the bunny? So I kind of thought about entering this contest just kind of as a joke, but I bought this before I started using R. I had to have, because I think I started using R around 2000. Well, it's probably around the same time. So I don't know. It's a relic of the past, I guess. Anyway, so I don't even know how we. Oh, my voice. So my voice might be giving out, so sorry about that. But I'm drinking my soothing hot chocolate, and hopefully that will help. I do have some water here as well. But if it gets too terrible, I'll probably bail a little early tonight. So the inline curly brackets are a very easy way to use these watermarks. And so what you have here is you have the specification of a new slide within Reveal.js slides is just one or two hashtags put together. And so there's little differences in formatting across those two, but the standard in terms of the way that I've been structuring these Reveal.js slides is I tend to use two hash marks together. So it's kind of like it's a second level header indicator. But in the context of Reveal.js slides, that means this is a new slide. And so you see here what's repeated on the right is based off of the snipped code that you have there on the left. So it says hello there as a title, and then there's some text. And the text here I'd cut off just for space purposes. But this is the way in which you get this image in the background here. And so the opacity, I put it at 0.5. So there's a little bit of subtleness to it. There's a little bit of kind of clouding or fading of it. So it's a little muted, I guess is another way to put that. And then the image itself, this isn't the real image, Rainbow Cat, but you would typically, what I do is I put in URLs. And so I'll just grab this straight from the internet. And that's what I did here. And the URL was too long, so I just shortened it and said it was a Rainbow Cat. But so this is the way I would recommend specifying watermarks on these Reveal.js slides. Just use these curly brackets after slide titles. And by the way, you don't need a slide title. So on some of these Quarto products, it'll kind of throw a fit if you don't give values for at certain points. With Reveal.js slides, we don't have that issue. There's actually, you can just leave this blank if you want. And so you can say, you don't need to say anything. You don't need to say hello there. You don't even need to have any text. You can just have a full slide image. And so I've used those in the past. So there are going to be circumstances where you might want to do something like that. So a very kind of powerful way of structuring off of your title, and it gives you this very nice visual here, and depending on the image that you have. You can use GIFs as well, so that works for GIFs. And then when it comes to moving away from slides, we didn't look at typist last week. This didn't, I wasn't assuming that this was going to be a very kind of hot topic, watermarks, and I think that was probably proven accurate. But so we didn't explore all possible specifications of watermarks. If anyone's out there and you're interested, that's why we're here. If you want to know, drop a note and we can certainly do that. But in the absence of anybody caring, all we did was we looked at standard PDF specifications as well as HTML type files. And both of those, there was an extension that really worked well for both of those. And the extension, I think it's called Quarto Watermark. Let's see. Again, there's a hyperlink. Yeah, it's called Quarto-Watermark. And then there's installation instructions, there's specification instructions in terms of the YAML of your document. And then there's a whole bunch of, there's really a lot of kind of specification that you can do and some of which you need to do in order to use this. Now, the entire extension is modeled off of an old LaTeX package called drapht watermark. And so drapht watermark is the way that traditionally one of the ways in which traditionally we would specify watermarks within a PDF document using LaTeX. And so LaTeX is the typesetting language that historically has been associated with the creation of PDF documents. So that's probably enough on this. I don't want to I don't know. Probably don't need to over discuss watermarks with my voice cracking like it is. But if you're interested in that and if there's anything confusing in these slides, drop me a note and I'll give you a hand there. I guess the one thing that I will say, as we tested this last week without me reading the directions as we typically do, one of the elements that turned out to be very kind of useful is this size specification that's on line 10 here in this bit of code that's shared. And by the way, I think I shared the entire, this is an entire document. So if you wanted to copy this and after you have that extension installed, it should produce for you a document that you can play with and see what those watermarks actually look like. Okay, again, my voice is given a little bit, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But watermarks are pretty fun, I think. Tonight's going to be fun as well because tonight we get to revisit the thing that really so there were two, I would say there were two kind of main product types that really spoke to me and really kind of got their claws into me with regard to fully jumping on board and using these processes to create papers, to create slides, to create things that I needed in terms of my daily activities as a professor. And one of them was Papaja, which is a package that produces APA formatted papers. The other was Xaringan slides. And so these Xaringan slides were created by a guy by the name of, I might be pronouncing Xaringan wrong, sorry. I might be pronouncing vi-vii wrong, sorry. But he's a very prolific early contributor to Posit, that was at that point RStudio. So the company now that's known as Posit that gives us the IDE RStudio and lots of other things. It gives us Quarto as well, Positron, and many, 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 many packages. So vi-vii was involved with Knitter, the actual engine that kind of helps power all of this stuff. He was involved with all kinds of R markdown developments. And one of the things he created were these Xaringan slides. And so so if you click on all of these little ninjas here have hyperlinks to them. What you're looking at in terms of this little girl, I didn't even think, so it looks bad right now. I didn't think of it, but there's a little girl in a room with a marker surrounded by ninjas. I'm betting that the little girl is going to win. So she looks like she can take on these ninjas. And one of the ninjas is a turtle anyway. So although it's Raphael. Raphael, he's pretty badass. So the ones on the left, this guy here, I don't know. I think she can take this guy. This guy just looks like a little clip art guy. Well, this guy's definitely a clip art guy. Raph looks like he's had a tough day. So, and then this is a little, I don't know what that guy is. He almost looks like Raphael. He's not, but he kind of looks like it. So what you see here with the little girl, this is a Xaringan slide that I made along with some collaborators, some former students of mine. We gave a seminar, we gave a talk at a local professional group about using these processes. And so when we put this talk together, we structured it and created it using Xaringan slides. And so you can wheel through this if you want. If you're interested in seeing the larger slide deck, you can activate this ninja on top. So that ninja on top will take you to the full slide deck. But there's a couple of things about Xaringan that are different from these Reveal.js slides that you see every week. And so I'm going to go slowly here and stop on this second page. So on the bottom right here, it actually says we're page 2 out of 64. This is a larger slide deck. It was like a 2-hour long seminar thing. So more content than when I was a professor, my slide decks generally were about 15 to 20 slides. And that takes me over, as you can probably imagine, with how I'm very capable of just kind of gabbing, which is really funny because in person, in social context, I can't. But when we're talking about this, I guess I can. But we're on slide number 2 right here out of 64. And I'm going to wheel down, and that slide's going to stay the same. So it's still going to be slide 2, but you're going to see some movement of the text. And this is one of the most noticeable for me differences between Reveal.js slides and what are effectively something called remark.js. So there's different JavaScript specifications that are powering these slides that you're actually looking at. The more modern one that you see from me is Reveal, and it's still existing, but the predecessor, I would say, probably to that was called Remark. And so the Remark.js slides, they have this kind of built-in animation, just recognizing space within the slide itself. Now there's kind of approximations that you can do to that, and you probably can do this, but in terms of built-in capabilities, this isn't something that is automated by default within these Quarto slides. And so, you know, it's a little subtle something, but it's something that I kind of miss. And when I came back to this, I'm like, oh, that's right. It does do that, and that is different, and I kind of like it. So there's differences between Xaringan slides and Reveal.js slides. Now, I almost decided, I did think, as I was putting these together, that I probably should make this week's slides via Xaringan instead of via Reveal.js, which would have made sense because we're covering the topic of Xaringan slides. I decided not to because I don't actually have it installed on my computer. So I figured we might as well all of us go through the full process of creating Xaringan slides, which would include installing it, and so starting from scratch. So that's why this week's slides are not Xaringan slides. I don't know. Maybe I should have done that. But so Papaja was one real kind of eye-opener for me in terms of this process of structuring work. The other eye-opener is linked on the title here, where it says Xaringan, the text itself, not the little clip art ninja, but the text. If you click on that, why did that happen? If you click on that, you're going to get a slide deck made via Xaringan from Allison Hill. Now, it says 2019. I swear I ran across this prior to 2019, so maybe there were a few similarly themed slides that Allison had put together. I don't know Allison, but I really appreciate the stuff that she has out there. I've come across a few things. And she really has a slick tutorial on what Xaringan is and how to actually use it and some of its capabilities. Now, she uses the metaphor of, we use the metaphor of an academic office hour. She uses the metaphor of cooking. And so she talks about Xaringan in terms of applying it. She talks about it using this metaphor of cooking. There we are, using these kinds of elements of salt, fat, acid, and heat. Collectively, it's something that is important for having flavor and variety in your food. And so she takes each of these in steps. So after an initial kind of introduction into what it is, she takes you through a different aspect of structuring these Xaringan slides. And I just think it's a really remarkable, really nice resource. So again, on these slides, there's always resources linked. If you're interested in Xaringan and seeing kind of what it can do, I would recommend checking out this Allison Hill slide. I really do think it's great. Now, some of the built-in capabilities, it does have some shared capabilities with the Reveal.js slides, but it does have some unique capabilities as well. One of the ones I miss quite a bit is this cloning capability. So if you just hit the letter C, you're going to be able to clone the slides. Now, if you hit the letter P, you're going to get presentation notes on your cloned slides. Now, everything I do in here is going to be repeated in the initial host or not cloned slide. So you can imagine a case use of this. So if you're presenting, this is you're presenting this, and you on your laptop or whatever device you have, you can actually have this going. It has a nice little timer. It's got so many neat little things built into it. It actually has, you can program, and you could probably do this in Quarto as well, but in Xaringan, it's built into the YAML. You can have it do kind of auto advancing for you. In my my professional association, the last few years, they've started to kind of promote this way of presenting. We call them FIRE. I think there's an acronym, but I don't know if that's a shared acronym or not. And it just simply means that your slides are going to advance whether you want them to or not. So you can set up your Xaringan slides to actually do that. There's so many capabilities. If you hit the H button here, and I'm going to do it in the larger screen so you can see. You get some indication of the types of functionality that you have here. Now, one of my favorite Xaringan features is, well, there's a couple of them. The B key is a blackout. So if you wanted to hide something from people, you can just hit the B key really quick. Another way to hide, which is just, I love it, it's so quirky, it's so fun, is M. If you hit the M button, it'll take the slide and completely mirror it. So along the vertical axis, you just flip everything. And so it's kind of disorienting if you want keep something there, but kind of have, hold people's attention on you and not the content itself. You can just kind of befuddle them a little bit by hitting that M button. Okay, so there's all kinds of neat, again, probably not entirely unique to Xaringan. I'm guessing we could probably introduce this functionality into Quarto slides, but it's just built into Xaringan. So there may be circumstances where you want to craft a slide deck using Xaringan and not Reveal. Now, I just hit F to show you that one of the things that I do notice that I don't like just aesthetically going through these Xaringan slides is that if you're not in full screen, there is kind of that letterbox look to it on the left and right. There's good and bad to that. So I mean, it's good. It gives you a sense of kind of where you are, and it reinforces that you're looking at a slide deck here. I appreciate that, but just aesthetically, I kind of like not having those, and they do go away if you just use full screen. So Xaringan is awesome, and let's check it out. So let's actually play a little bit with Xaringan. So let me go back to, let's get our slides back here. I thought there was something else I wanted to clue people in on tonight here, but it's slipping my mind at the moment. Hopefully my audio is a little better this week. Again, I'm going to probably start using these headphones. So if you're out there and want to give me some feedback, I would appreciate it, because I'm not sure, I don't get a lot of feedback in terms of audio. I go through these really quickly after each session. I spend maybe 5 minutes just kind of speeding through to do timestamps for people, because I know most people watch these after the fact. So I hear myself a little bit, but I don't here a lot. There is a second hyperlink here, the little clip art guy on top. This is Yiwei's presentation, and he walks you through, but he walks you through some of the capabilities and how to structure and what you can do. And again, there's interactivity that's available, just as there is within Quarto slides. There's some internal kind of jokes that are embedded within some of these products, and so this is, I think it's Carl Broman, maybe. I don't know this individual. I don't know any of these individuals, but obviously Yiwei and him have kind of probably a good fun relationship, and so he embedded an option in his slides where you can just say YOLO, you only live once, in a YAML, and it'll introduce a picture of that guy just randomly within your slide deck. So I love those little quirks. And again, you don't need to use them. It's just kind of there if you want to play with it. Okay, this guy, what is this guy linked to? This is what I was looking for. So the little guy on the left, he'll take you to a repository. So I don't believe Xaringan is on CRAN. Let's see. We can actually test that here. Oh, it is on CRAN. Okay. So you can either install that. And by the way, I don't have it. So I was surprised that I don't, because I used to use it so frequently. But I don't have it anymore. So it's an R package for creating slideshows. It explains a little bit about why it's named what it is. It's a presentation. The thought of it is that you should be a presentation ninja, and kind of leveraging your capabilities as a kind of expert at presentations and making super cool and deadly and lethal presentations. So I think we can actually, so we could install it from here. I think we can just take it from CRAN as well. There are, if we look at this repository, there have been changes that have been made to it fairly recently. So 6 months ago. That's not that long ago. That means there's still some work being done on this. There's still support being presented on this. There is a lot of support for Xaringan slides, both online, but then also in traditional textbook resources. So let's go ahead and install the package. I just out of habit, I went in the wrong spot there. Assuming that I was going to start a new file, but we don't have it. So Xaringan Extra and Xaringan Themer, I guess we could check those out. I don't know what those are, honestly. So maybe we'll check those out after we do this. So we should be able to go our markdown now that it's installed. And then from template, there it is. Nice. So I believe Yiwei, I believe he's Chinese. I'm not 100% on that, but that would kind of make sense that there's a Chinese option there as well. And here's the template. So RStudio is so fantastic with their products in terms of giving you starter templates. Now, one of there's a few peculiarities here in terms of the structure of this, but let's just walk through the scripting a little bit and see what we have. So first thing that I think we should probably note is these 3 dash marks are the indicator of a new slide within the Xaringan structure, and that's different than Quarto. Quarto, we would put, instead of the 3 dashes, we would do 1 or 2 hashtags. Same effect, different scripting structure. The other thing that's different here within, there's a few things that are different in terms of the scripting, but there's a class specification early on in the slide, and this will tell the renderer what you want this particular slide to look like. So center and middle is telling you is telling the renderer where the content should be placed. You can say left, you can say right, you can say top, you can say bottom, either down or bottom. You can say center, you can say middle. I don't remember what the default is, but we'll play with that a little bit. And then here's a first level header, and then here's a third level header. Here's a new slide because there's another class specification. Inverse, I believe, is going to be the formatting in terms of the foreground and background. Another slide will be hello world, and there's a hyperlink here. So you see there's some shared content in terms of specification. Just this standard markdown structure of something in square brackets is what's going to be displayed. And then adjacent to it in parentheses, that's the hyperlink. So this GitHub will be a hyperlink, and it will take you to this particular web page. You can see an R chunk here. So this R chunk is actually saying, go ahead and install from GitHub the most recent version of this package. Now there's an eval false up here, so that's saying don't run it. So it's presenting the code, but it's not going to run the code. If we put eval true, it would actually run that code as we're engaging with this process. Now here you see a slightly different specification. So we have 3 indicating a new 3 indicating a new slide, 3 indicating a new slide, 3 indicating a new slide. Then you see 2. So my recollection of 2 is this is the structure that's used for fragmentation. So within this hello world slide, my expectation is that we're going to have fragmented information come up as we advance, either using the keypad or using the mouse wheel. So at first, you are recommended to use the RStudio IDE. It will not be displayed, but if we engage with it, it will. This is just a hash, so this should come up with this. So this entire scripting should come through within the same fragment. Now here's another fragment, and so this looks like it's building. There's a lot of information that's going to come in sequentially. There's footnotes as well. So the structure of the way in which you specify how you want things to look, how you want them to appear, how you want them to operate is different in Xaringan than it is in Quarto. So this dot footnote square bracket specification, within Quarto, we would probably expect to be using curly brackets for that specification. So same effect, but the way in which you script it is a little different. So this is the way that I would expect to have to structure this information if we were crafting this within a Reveal.js slide deck instead of a Xaringan slide deck. Here you see a background image put in as a overall slide attribute. And so again, at the beginning, each of these 3 dashes, there's some specification in terms of what you want not only the entire presentation to look like, but this slide deck to look like. Okay, so let's just render it and see what happens. You know, I'm not so worried about the 2013 Nestle Quick. I'm more worried about the milk that I had. The last few times I've bought milk, like I don't know what's wrong with my milk, but it's not lasting, and it's like it looks like it's cottage cheese. I heated it up and it looked like it was cottage cheese. It's not great. Okay, so what did we expect to happen? Let's go through the scripting and see what we expected to happen and what actually did happen. So one of the things we were looking for in terms of a background image is we were looking for a background image. Now I don't see one there, and I don't see one on the title slide, but I do see one on the second slide. So this information here is coming in as the first slide, which makes sense because the title slide information is going to be specified within the YAML presentation ninja. Then you have this special character, which it's nice. It actually comes up with Xaringan. It says iwe RStudio PBC. So you can see this was initially done quite a long time ago. And then we have the background image. It says these 3 question marks here. This is the way within Xaringan slides to specify presentation notes. So if we were to look at this, and on that slide, I hit, what slide are we on? Yeah, it's the background image slide. If I hit P, we should see those presentation notes there. Image credit, Wikimedia Commons, and it says here image credit, Wikimedia. What's a Wikimedia? Wikimedia Commons. I didn't know there was such a thing. Maybe we should check that out. We don't really have time to check it out. We're not going to check it out tonight. Okay, so that's what presentation notes look like. We see the class center middle here. So the center is left and right, I believe, and the middle is up and down. Again, some special characters here. And we saw when we had the umlaut, uncial, and Unicode week, we saw different ways of specifying these kind of special characters. Certainly, these modern editors are capable of just accepting them and then reproducing them, which is kind of neat. Here you see the inverse. So the inverse class that you see here, it did actually change that background and foreground information in terms of white on dark to dark on white. Pretty neat. Get started, hello world. By the way, you're seeing the kind of first level header operation and second level header operation as you would expect in a non-slide type document. So in an HTML or a PDF file, we're expecting this specification of a hashtag to have kind of the same rendering effect. It just becomes simply a title or a first level header. So hello world says install the Xaringan package. And then here, so this is the slide where we expect to see fragments. So these 2, 2, 2, those should all be fragments. So we'll go slowly on this one. Whoops, I can see already it did happen. So here you see the effect of having these 3 ticks, the eval false, tidy equals false. I'm not sure what tidy does. There are so many chunk options that you can have in R markdown. It's hard to actually stay on top of all of them. But I'm gonna rotate my mouse wheel down here, and then we see the fragment that comes in. You are recommended to use, and again the hyperlink here, and then a little different font specification because this is inline code indicated by a single tick. It's not really code, but it's the same effect as having code. So if I wheel down again, I have another fragment. If I wheel down again, I have this should be the last fragment. And so what we're seeing here in terms of the single dash is actually being interpreted in the context of Xaringan. It's being interpreted as a bullet. So we should be able to, I usually use plus signs instead. I don't know. I find them a little easier to follow as I'm going through the script. So if we were to reproduce this, and by the way, let's go ahead and change the class a little bit. So we can put an inverse class in this as well. So the expectation now is the bullets are going to be the same. I just changed the scripting. I should have this now rendered in black on the background instead of white. Let's see if it happens. Yeah, there we go. So, I mean, it's very easy to navigate this. And again, the bullet specifications are fine. We can change, I actually don't like that black background, but we can also change, there's all kinds of different highlighting styles that we can have on here. If we just take this off, we'll see what the default highlighting style is. Now, the highlighting should apply to hyperlinks as well. Again, this is just off the top of my head, and I haven't used these for a couple of years now. But we should see a slight difference. I don't know why that gets me so much. But I don't think that that's affecting that. It's probably affecting script highlighting. So there is some opportunity in here to actually highlight script, and I think when I say that, I mean in these code chunks itself, there's some highlighting, and that might be referring to that. Okay, let's keep going through this and seeing what other neat capabilities we have. I was gonna there's some of the highlighting I was talking about. I was gonna maybe structure or create our own one, but there's enough content here where I think we can probably just go through it. Okay, so that was the slide we were at that we had slightly changed. Then there's the YOLO. You only live once. Background position, the class on this one probably doesn't matter because it's just a background image, but you can see the actual printing of that. So I guess it does matter. When he says bottom, so bottom is this, if, so top should be an option as well. So we'll see if we can put it on, again, I think that, oh yeah, it's Carl. We'll see if we can put it on Carl's forehead. Yeah. So there are some really neat, easy, kind of intuitive, just interactions and specifications that you have within these Xaringan slides, and you can change the font. You can change a lot and specify it. And actually, Yue, if you read the documentation for Xaringan, he is hopeful that to become a true ninja, you're going to learn CSS, which I've been learning now for the last couple of years. But increasingly with AI, you don't really need to know it, because AI is so helpful with CSS. So AI can help you craft CSS. And what that does is it'll just change the styling of how things look, how they appear, fonts and displays and locations and sizings and things like that. The CSS opportunity in terms of application here, that's where the author of the package says he's hopeful that people will do that and become a true ninja. And it is fun. It is fun building those skills. Again, you don't need to if you're okay with using AI, but the opportunity is there if you do want that. Again, we see the bullets specified with dashes. I prefer plus signs. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that I don't like using the visual editor within RStudio is early on when I tried using it, jumping back and forth between the visual and source. I don't know if this is a bug or not, but that process of just going back and forth, the visual editor would take my specifications, which I prefer, of bullets, which are plus signs, and it would change them. I'm like, don't do that. I don't want you to change that. Why are you changing that? But it doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. It has the same effect. There's another footnote, and you see the specification of that dot, and then there's a few different attributes that you can apply that are built in. You can always create your own as well. But the specification of it is the dot attribute, and then square bracket what you want to be applied, or what you want to be affected. Here's Carl again. Those two must have a fantastic, just kind of back and forth relationship. Not quite Jim and Dwight, right? Like more friendly, I would think, than Jim and Dwight. I don't know. Every office relationship was pretty dysfunctional, so it's probably not the best metaphor to use there. Inverse middle center for use. I keep popping off. Inverse middle center for, where are we at? Using Xaringan. Okay. So again, we could change that all we want to do. And I'm gonna need to wait for it to render and pop it out. But it also renders really quickly, so that's nice. But again, you see and there's a add-in that you can have so that what you make in the left-hand scripting pane appears immediately in the preview pane. It's called, I think, it's like a Moonreader extension or something. I've never used it because I've never felt the need to. Rendering works fine for me in terms of when I make changes and when I want to see what those changes look like. So here we see our first code block. And this is actually just a YAML specification. It's not having any sort of R code that we normally would play with. Let's try the autoplay here, because I think that is one of the features that I had mentioned that we should check out before we pop off here tonight. And the autoplay, I think it's in milliseconds, but it's going to advance the slides for us. So let's go ahead and put that in the YAML. I'm going to pop that down to 3,000. So 30,000 should be 30 seconds. 3,000 should be every 3 seconds. Let's see what happens. Yeah, there it goes. That's about 3 seconds. Now, if I put the presentation notes on, that so the presentation notes start timing from when you enter the presentation notes. So this isn't from the beginning of the slide itself. It's actually from when we entered this mode of viewing. And again, you can clone, which is neat. And the clone will start its own counter. Now, you probably don't want two cloned with presentation slides. You probably want a clone with a presentation and a display slide. And so you can see where this might be you wouldn't want to do 3 seconds, obviously. But if you just want to be hands-free on something like this, it's one quick and easy way to do that. Now, it looks like it's kind of tripping a little bit, but I believe that's just kind of a little bit delay between the presentation slide and the slide that we were looking at. All right, we don't need that, so I'm going to take that off. But autoplay is neat. There's so many neat little kind of hidden feature capabilities on here. I don't know, maybe next week, maybe I'll do a Xaringan just for nostalgia's sake. It's been a while. It's probably been since that one that I have on this week's slides. It's probably been since then that I've actually spent a lot of time doing a Xaringan presentation. So we were right about here. Let's see where we're at in the script. There's an outline that's sometimes helpful in RStudio to find where we're at. I don't use it that often, but this might be helpful. There we go. And of course, as soon as I minimize it, I've kind of lost my spot a little bit. Remark.js versus Xaringan. Again, that's the underlying kind of, like many of these things, capabilities that we have. There's an entire group of individuals that are working on these sorts of slides outside of R that have no interest in R or Python or any sort of statistical language. They just want to do internet slides. And so that's what the remark is going to be about, I'm guessing. And then, yeah, the main reason we want to do it is because not to create just these kind of neat looking slides, but we also want to incorporate R's processing capabilities. And we're starting to get that here in terms of the slides coming up. So let's take a look at this actually quickly. So he's done a clever thing here. So pull left and pull right is one of the ways to specify columns within Xaringan. So pull left is saying start with the boilerplate, and you'll notice that he's just using the same number. Now this is true in Quarto as well. So you can, if you're using numbers, the processor will know enough that these are supposed to be numbered bullets, or a numbered list, numbered bulleted list, so it will automatically create those numbers for you. So you don't, the reason this is helpful is sometimes you're crafting a list and maybe it's a draft and you want to change it and you want to put something into spot 3, and now you have to go and change spots 4 through 6, and you actually don't need to do that. So this is a clever way of structuring numbered lists. Just give it all the number 1. It's fine. That's pretty cool. I sometimes do that, but I probably should do it more frequently. I like to have kind of an accurate representation of the rendered product be reflected in my script just for me looking through and seeing it. But it's probably better practice because of the possibility of kind of just making internal errors to just use the same number. So one of the things you see here is he's using Unicode value for, what is it? Looks like $. So he's using a Unicode value for a $sign specification, and then he doesn't here. Interesting. So, oh, I know why he's doing that. That is so clever. That is so incredibly clever. If you use $sign, that it's going to be displayed differently. It's just these people. They're non-artificial intelligence. They're true human intelligence. Just is impressive. There's the little kind of clever things that they actually do. Okay, so it has LaTeX capability, and you'll in a lot of documentation of these products that we're talking about, you'll see discussions about LaTeX and how important that is, and that's because of the tradition of using this way of scripting and structuring your documents. It does come from this mathematical typesetting tradition, and so that's traditionally why that sort of specification is talked about as being so important, and you see it so frequently. Another slide here specified. You'll see that the classes aren't being explicitly noted, and that's just resulting in the default slide specification. And there's different themes, so you can have a different theme applied, which will affect the font, the color, and then the background as well. Here we're actually seeing some actually neat stuff. So this chunk command here is saying that the output should have some comments added to it. So this code is actually being run, and the output you see here with the comments in front of it. Just neat stuff. And then we get into some plots. Again, you can alter what it looks like. The SVG, I'm not sure what that dev actually stands for. It's possible that this is being saved as an SVG file. I would have to look into that. I don't remember off the top of my head. But we're just seeing a pretty straightforward kind of regression plot there, or a scatter plot with a regression line through it. Tables, you can use all different types of tables. The knitter engine cable is very popular. There's also a cable extra package, KBL, which does most of the same. It has some extended functionality for piping capabilities to kind of get fancy with what your tables look like. We covered that a few weeks when we covered the letter K. We did cable and cable extra. There are so many different table options, and some of them are a little more frustrating. Some of them are more fun. This morning we were playing with flex table this morning. Tiny tables are a lot of fun. DT is very popular. GT is very popular. There is a little caveat here in terms of some of the interactive capability. Beware that it might not all be super functional. This one is. It's fine. It's a map, leaflet map. What's on the next one? Here we have a more interactive table. We should be able to search in it. This is a DT table. So this is one of those interactive packages that's pretty popular. What do I want to do? Let's search for, I don't know, we'll search for 5.4. So there's one number 5.4 in this entire data set, which has, it only has 10 entries. Oh, because he's asking for only 10. And again, the nice thing about this is you can, if you're looking and editing this way, you can just go back into the script and say, oh, that's a little too much. I don't want the top 8 irises. Just give me 5 of them. And so just go ahead and make that little change. And then if you can find your knit button. And by the way, go to within these Xaringan slides, you can pop around a number of different ways. One of the ways that is recommended is just using the keypad. So if I just hit the number 18 or 19, it should take me there. Okay, so you see the effect here, and again, you can see some of the interactive capabilities as I hover. You can sort these as well. So the DT tables are pretty popular and they're pretty cool. Some tips. He wants you to try YOLO because that'll bring up randomly that picture of his friend Carl. Some other tips. Here we go. There's a there was a fragment that was put in there. More tips. All right, my voice is going. We're a little bit over, so I think we'll just call it there. I might do one more week on Xaringan just because it was fun revisiting this, and we didn't create anything from scratch, and I might want to. And there are those other Xaringan packages that are out there that I'm unfamiliar with. So it's possible we'll do one more week of Xaringan. If not, we'll be on to the letter Y next week. All right, thanks everybody. Oh, hey Butcher, sorry, I didn't see that comment. But thanks everybody. Appreciate you being here, and hopefully see you next week.